Hi, my name is Sally Barnard, an artist, author, and spiritual experiencer. Welcome to Call Me Zena, a true story into the spiritual realms. Join me as I sit and discuss the journey of self-discovery and awakening with the help of my spirit guides. It's time to trust your intuition. This is your inner knowings. Through questions and points of conversation, I can help others feel empowered. With the ability to touch people's past lives, I help others connect and not feel alone. Sit with me and call in live, 888-994-4995. Everybody, it's Halloween. The witches are around. Okay, we're going to open the show a little bit differently. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've been doing the last few weeks. And I have Freddie here who's going to give me a question, and I'll be happy to answer it about where I've been and where I'm going.
Where have you been and where are you going?
Okay, that's a good question. I've been away. I went to New York. It was beautiful. I had a wonderful time with my fiance on my birthday. I love New York. I love it very much. And actually, I'm going on a cruise in a couple of weeks, so I'm really excited. Life is good. I love doing this show. I love the call-ins. I love the questions, so please keep them coming, okay? I really enjoy doing this, and I'm hoping I'm helping people, because that's what I like to do, too. Do you have a question for me?
Yes, Sally, I wanted to ask. The first thing is, people are going to be watching this show, and this show has been tape delayed, so we want to let them know that up front.
Okay.
Is there a phone number they can call you? Will you be taking calls no matter where you're going, or do they have to wait till you get back?
I believe they have to wait till I get back, so that won't be, it'll be next Monday I'll be here, but the following Monday I won't, which actually is Halloween, which I just introduced myself as Happy Halloween. Okay, so please call in. I won't be, just next Monday, yes, Halloween Monday, no.
So it's 888-994-4995, Studio A?
Yes.
And we'll be happy to take your name and number. And if you have a question, we'll also pass that on to you.
Great. Thank you. Yes.
Now,
please
where are you heading? To New York? Where are you going?
Actually, we're going on a cruise to the Caribbean, where actually I lived in St. Martin for 2 years. So I hope we're not visiting St. Martin, but I love the island. So that's going to be really enjoyable.
Are you going with Steve?
I'm going with Steve, yeah.
Now, you and Steve are getting married soon.
We're getting married December the 18th, yes. I'm excited. I never thought that I'd be doing this again. So here I am.
So I wanted to ask you, spirit-wise, in the spirit world, what does marriage mean?
That's, okay. Let me bring them in and see. I think marriage, for me, and this is what they're telling me, is a way of solidifying your relationship. At my age, and people are saying that to me, I'm getting older, why in the world do you need to get married? This is true. However, I do feel that there is some sort of significance with a marriage. People say, well, it's just a piece of paper, you don't have to get married. But if you love somebody, it's a mutual respect. If the person asks you to get married, this is how I felt with no idea of wanting to get married again, and also with Steve. But there is a bond. For me, I can't talk for everybody. I feel that there's more of a bond. Plus, in marriage too, there are certain things here that, you know, I believe if you're in hospital, they only allow sometimes your husband or immediate family. So it just solidifies the relationship for me.
Is it easy to say that spirit joins souls? And how long does it take to realize that?
Well, you know, with my belief and what I feel that we have actually planned our life before we come in. But to me, I've questioned that a little bit because I actually met Steve 22 years ago. But I've worked at this, and I feel that at that 22 years ago, it was not the timing. I think we had, in fact, I know we had planned to be together. But again, there is no time as I see it on the other side. But we were not that compatible 22 years ago. We both had to work, I believe, actually on ourselves for us to come together. There were many obstacles in the way then, and it may not have lasted. I have to be sure, certainly at my age, that it's a lasting relationship that we have. So Yes, we met 22 years ago. In answer to your question, I believe that we had planned to be together, but the timing wasn't right.
So is it safe to ask? A lot of people, like yesterday, you had a ton of people in here
Yes.
asking and calling questions and everything
Right.
else. Is it safe to say that things change spiritually? A soul grows, it changes, it learns. Is it safe to say that all the answers that you seek take time to develop?
Yes, again, because I do rely obviously on my collective. And on the other side, since I was told also by my guide who was here on earth with me, there is no time on the other side. So it's kind of, we have free will. So it doesn't always run true to what we have planned. However, timing is very important here, not on the other side, because and it's very difficult to understand this. And for me too, everything is happening at the same time. Now that's difficult, I understand that. But here we've kind of sectioned it off in certain sections. So, and I'm going to mention again, 22 years ago was not my time to be with Steve. However, he was meant to be in my life. I had no idea I was going to meet him again, but I did somewhere, and we did meet, and we are now engaged to be married. That's how it works. I feel that we definitely plan our life. But again, if there's no time, we don't know when it's going to happen. And again, through situations and circumstances, which I learned from my guide here, it doesn't always work out the way that we have worked it out. Because I believe in timelines. And I think certain times we follow a timeline, and then we can go on to a different timeline. So what we had planned on one timeline might not be working on the second timeline. That's another show, which I'd love to actually talk about someday.
Well, I was going to bring some of that up because I saw that you got different questions from different people yesterday.
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
And all of these people, there were different ages, different beliefs, different souls, different mindsets. And you're giving them what Spirit is telling you.
Yes.
Is relaying to you about them. How do you analyze all of their present beings? They have a present timeline right now that they're asking you the question. And I'm making reference to if I sit here and I say to you, Sally, am I going to find the love of my life? This is present timeline. So tomorrow, if I ask you the same question, am I going to have the same answer, or do things constantly shift?
Well, again, with timelines, and I don't fully understand it, if we're on the same timeline as we are today, tomorrow, because they shift all the time, if we're on that same timeline, my answer to your question would be what I gave you today, tomorrow. However, if we've shifted, you've also shifted into another timeline. It's very, very subtle timelines. So the answer could be different. However, having said that, you may not, although this is also hard to explain or even understand, remember what I said to you the day before, because we were on different timelines. And I say, when people ask me that question, it's so subtle. You can be going down a street, okay, and you see, like, say, a hospital is big, let's say a tree in a certain place, but you may remember that tree. Now you're going along that same street the following day, and there's no tree there. We don't always remember, but we can remember and say, what happened to that tree? We've shifted. It's complicated, and I know that. But I'm so interested in it that I ask them to help me with this, and they actually are.
Because you can have an addition or a subtraction on the timeline
Yes,
that would change the perspective of what's going to occur.
Absolutely. That's a timeline. Now, there are other situations. There's like other, what I would call, not dimensions, but there's alternative universes too, which I am beginning to understand. Now, that can be a different scenario. Everything is taking place and it looks the same, but we're on an alternative universe. Again, I would love to talk more about that some other time, but I've come to the point in my life that I can't tell you that I understand it completely, because I don't, but I'm very aware of that. And that's the first part of beginning to understand what's going on. Complicated, yes, very complicated.
And the same thing, I want to ask you, I've been always wanting to write a book.
Okay.
And I asked you, should I write a book? but then there's a lead-up question afterwards. Do you want it now, or do you want it after you answer the first question?
Yeah, give me the lead up to. Yeah,
The lead up to?
Yes.
And if I am to write a book, assuming it's yes, then with all the things that I have incurred in my life, what one thing do I write about?
As I'm writing a book, so I can answer that personally, what's happening to me. Again, when I first, and actually these two things are very similar. I started to write my book 15 years ago. It was about me when I was astral projecting. I had no idea what was happening to me. I was flying all over the place. It's basically a documentary on what I'm doing. This book has far more detail that's going to come out in a few months. I believe at that time I was on a different timeline. So you can write the book. Give me the last part of the question again. Sometimes
What am I going to write about with there's so
Okay.
many timelines? I shift 17 times a day.
Yes, you probably do. But what you're writing is what's happening to you in this particular timeline that you're writing. Now, when you go ahead and you start to write from another timeline, it will be very similar. But you might say to yourself, for example, what made me write that? Because you're in a different timeline. But then you can shift back into that timeline and see why you wrote what you did when you did.
But shouldn't a book be something you have to say, not have to go back to remember or go back to change what you meant?
Well, you see, I actually am having experience with this because I'm going back into my first book. And there is so much more that I need to put in my new book. But it helps me. I remember my travels because I was traveling and it's like it's something that I was doing. So that comes back to me. But I'm saying so many other things were happening to me, which I didn't know at the time. So I can go back and see what I wrote in the first book. But then I can relate more to what's happening now to be able to add to that. Again, I feel...
But you've written a book.
I've written a book. I had no idea.
You've written about a timeline of multiple.
Yes. I didn't know I was going to write a book, though, Freddie.
I know that, but you wrote it.
I wrote it. I didn't write it with writing a book in mind, because every time I was traveling at night, and I was going 3 times a week for nearly a year, I would wake up at 3 and document my travels. But after a while, and people were really interested in what was happening to me, I said, maybe I should make a book. I didn't put the beginning and end, how it all started, perhaps, and certainly now to where I am now. So my book may be a little bit different because I had no idea at all that this was going to be in print where I was traveling, but I felt it was something that people needed to know.
So if people ask you, should I write a book, then the answer would be what? Yes today, yes tomorrow, no Thursday, yes on Friday?
Okay, if you decide to write a book, and I do feel that you are going to write a book, by the way, that's just my personal message to you, it'll come to you, Freddie. Just like what I'm doing now comes to me because you are on a higher vibrational energy. I feel that. Okay, so when you start, although you may not even know what you're going to write, just write from what you're hearing, your feelings. If you want to start in your childhood, if you want to start later in life, that's up to you. But I feel once you start writing that book, you will have a book, definitely.
All right, so let's take that same question towards writing a book, and let's talk about relationships.
Okay,
People have or want to have, everybody wants to have a relationship,
okay.
one way or the other. The question is, when they ask you, am I going to meet the love of my life? Am I going to get married? The question that I have is, it's just like writing a book, isn't it? Because you're not the same person on Monday that you are on Tuesday. Definitely not Wednesday, definitely not Thursday. Friday is a whole different person. Saturday and Sunday, you're looking at what wasn't there Monday. So how do you approach a question when somebody says, am I going to find Mr. or Mrs. Right based on that theory?
Well, I go with what I'm being led to follow. I don't know the person well, sometimes I do, but most of the time I don't know the person I'm talking to. I can only give them the message that I am receiving because I believe the people, my collective on the other side, sees much more than I do. I don't know the person. There is someone on the other side that will know that person, so they will guide me into how I should answer. And I always say, and this is something I feel strongly about, I'm not sure. I have been very correct in a lot of the questions that I've answered. However, again, there's so many things that can happen. We change timelines for one. That person may not follow exactly what they're feeling. So no one can be 100% certain. I'm certain of that. But the majority of the time, we are right with the answers. Not just me. Any psychic that's doing this is right. And it also gives that person, they start to open up themselves. Because if someone is not in a relationship, but they want a relationship, my feeling is if I'm hearing they will be in a relationship, I think it's only right to tell them that. So they are going to be aware as they go out. Well, I mean, you can't suddenly look at someone and say, I'm going to have a relationship, but they're open to that.
Could the love of a relationship mean love of something, an animal, work? Can it be finding a cure to something you've been looking for about yourself?
That's actually a really good question, because a relationship is many different things. But if someone asks a specific question about a relationship, is the love of my life going to enter my life shortly, then it will be as a human, as a person, or
what about a grandchild?
Or a grandchild, but they might say, is the love of my, am I going to get married, let's say. And then of course, then the answer will come that way. But you know what, that's a really good question, because when I answer a question, it could be something else. I'm just getting that they are going to be in a relationship. Well, you can be in a relationship with your dog, as I was with my dog. I loved her.
I like the fact that you give me a lot of room to interpret the question asked, which is really strange.
Right.
You tell me, this is what's going. You're going to write a book. Mm-hmm. You're not telling me what kind of book I'm writing. Mm-hmm. You're not telling me what it's going to be in it, how it's going to be put together. There's a lot of different ways that you leave to interpretation for me to pick from, which is amazing. Talk a little bit about time. Yes, you're going to find the person you're going to marry. But you're not telling me it's going to happen today. You're not telling me it is going to happen today.
But there's a reason that I do that. Because
can you
yes,
elaborate that?
Absolutely, because we have free will. Nothing is set, as they say, in stone. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have a relationship. I can tell you in the future, but the future could be 4 or 5 years. If we want to get more, more into the time frame, then I can go in and ask, and they'll give me perhaps within the next year. But I'm not going to, because I can't be sure of a certain date. I don't know, unless they give me a day. But that's very unusual. They don't do that, Freddie, with me.
Okay, and then I want to switch gears on you a little.
Okay.
I want to talk about how people who ask you certain questions and they are very uncomfortable about themselves. Does that have anything to do with the answer? Again, having choice, because you're giving me the straight answer.
Right.
How I interpret that straight answer, does it have anything to do with how I implement your answer?
Well, yes, because the way I'm getting this, as I mean, I can't be sure, but I can hear what they're saying to me. Everything has to be in order for that. In other words, our vibration right now is connecting. If I feel for some reason that you're having a bad day and you ask me a question, it's possible, or me too. My vibration's a little lower, so it won't be as specific. If everything, and it has to be lined up. I believe nothing is coincidence. You sitting here asking me these questions has already been planned, Freddie, and I feel that. So we're on a higher vibration. That's why I am reluctant to give a day or a time, and as they are giving me the messages, because as much as you, and I can only go by many of the messages that my friend Aldo Adamir in my book gave me, and he was not specific. He said that you may, not may, if he said something, it was going to happen, but he didn't give me the timing on it. He said within the next few weeks. So I had a lot of help interpreting this from someone who was physically in front of me, in physicality. So that's how I'm learning to be able to do this the way that I do, I think.
Well, it's interesting because you give answers that will supply more answers to those that are asking of it. It's not, let Sally resolve your issues. You're saying, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm going to tell you. Now you have to put it into play. Another point, guilty by association. How is it that if you surround yourself with negative people who have a negative output or a negative view on things, how is that going to affect no matter what Sally says?
Well, negativity will lower your vibrational energy. I try, and I mean, I'm human and I'm here in this 3D. I do try to hang around with people with a positive attitude. And even my friends, and not everybody is positive all the time. One girl in particular, I won't mention names because she's probably listening to the show, is inclined to be very negative. But the moment I speak with her, she says, oh, I can't do that around you. So even though she's just saying that, she is making her vibrations a little higher. So we can have that communication. I've given her many, many messages, and I seem to cheer her up very much when we're together. But her basic persona is everything is going to go wrong. I'm having a bad day today. Well, I believe if you're having a bad day today and you say that, your day will continue to be bad. So from what I understand, if we can just higher our vibrational energy, whatever your question, you're asking me the right questions because we're higher vibrational energy. If we were lower, it would be a different set of questions.
So let me ask you a personal question about me.
Okay.
I work with positive and negative people. Right?
Okay.
It's just the nature of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's people I've never known before and just met, or people that I know for years. Okay. It all depends on what timeline they're in.
Yes. So if let's put it like this, and this is what I'm hearing. We do have different timelines. So if you're in this is coming very clear, makes sense. If you're in a very positive mood, you're going to switch your timeline to bring in a lot of, oh my gosh, I'm getting goosebumps. Never thought of it this way. To bring in and coming into the studio here, not all the time, but very positive people. Now, if you're going to get a negativity there, say the next day, or it can happen during the day, it will follow. And you've switched a timeline into a slightly lower vibrational energy. You know, we are what we think, the law of attraction. So if we try knowingly to stay positive, we are going to bring in positive people, not all the time. So, now, and I'm learning this as I'm talking to you, as they're telling me, we will switch timelines. We switch timelines all the time. I mean, it could go on for 2 or 3 weeks, and we can say, oh, I'm having a great day, I'm having a great week. And it does work that way. Or that's why we say I'm having a bad day, and it continues, because all that negative's flowing in on a different timeline.
Isn't it strange that everybody goes to sleep, allegedly, and sleeps for 6 to 8 hours, allegedly, because you're going to wipe clean all of the negative energy that you had today. And then tomorrow, in my life, talking about myself, is I don't run from negative anymore because it's become part of what I do for a living. And I've been doing it 15 years. So my question to you is, judgment, if I were to judge anything in that negative timeline, then that's on me. Isn't that a negative on me? I have to keep my eyes open on the positive light because everything negative has a silver lining, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, because I believe we're here to learn. So if everything was, absolutely beautiful and having a great day, how are we going to learn what we really have to learn? But the fact that what you're doing, I see is very good, because you're aware of it. Once you're aware that this person is negative, you can't change that person. They're going to have to change. You can change that person by your actions and how you respond to somebody. So the fact that you're aware of that, Freddie, even though it might be a negative, you're now turning even that person into more positive thinking. It doesn't always work because, unfortunately, there are people on a lower vibration that are not picking up on that. But if you're talking to someone and you're gaining, say, their trust, which is very important, they're going to listen. And they're going to listen to you by example of what you do, which will raise the vibrational energy for both of you.
Very nice. Do we taking a commercial break? Let's take a commercial break.
Okay, we're taking a commercial break. I will be back soon. Okay.
A true story, Call Me Zena, is the telling of Sally Barnard. Born in London, England at the end of the Second World War, she came to the U.S. in 1979. A mother of 2 and grandmother of 4, she settled in Florida and worked in real estate. While going through a difficult time in her life, she was admitted into a hospital overnight in December of 2005. While settling back into her life, she began having vivid dreams and documenting them. By the third dream, a lady gave her a message to draw. With no artistic background or interest in art or history, Sally listened to her dreams and grabbed paper and crayons. Today, she has over 150 pieces of inspiring art and poetry. This book follows her journey and interpretations of these messages. She describes in detail how she's able to astral project and who she has met along her travels, including her spirit guides. This book will show you how anything is possible with an open mind. These events have changed Sally's life's direction, and this book will show you how to change yours. Purchase Call Me Zena on Amazon today.
This world, this life, this illusion. What is going on, we ask? What is happening? Why not take time and see what is happening? This world as we know it, it seems so real, and yet so far away from where we've come. Corruption, greed, anger, power, revenge. Please wake up. We can change what is around us. How, we may ask? Learn to go back to where we were. Then we will have the clues. Then we can change and go forward. Please take the time. Do not fall into the game which we have put upon ourselves. We can change. We can make a difference. We have the power, each and every one of us. Go in peace. Go with love. Go as one. Zena. You have been watching Call Me Zena with your host, Sally Barnard. As an artist, author, and spiritual experiencer, know that you could always seek me out for resources. Visit artbysallybarnard.com today. Now, back to the show. We're back. Okay, I'm ready.
Boy, that was quick. You want to
No,
say welcome back when people call you?
welcome back. Please call into the show. Okay, but
And then how can they reach you on Facebook?
just go into Sally Barnard and you'll see me. I'll come up. So I actually have 5,000 people on Facebook, but you can go in and follow me, and also on Call Me Zena.
So we should have 5,000 questions. A question for each person.
That's going to be very difficult, but we'll manage it.
No, it's not difficult
Yeah.
at all.
Okay. I'm expecting a lot of questions.
There you go. I gotta ask you, now that before the break, we talked about energy. So if I'm in a dark place, or I knew somebody who has a dark energy, can they be brought to light?
Yes, they can. It's a little harder because you have to really work at that. Let's say that you're in well, I don't want to use you personally, but the person sitting next to you, there happens to be nobody there, but if they're in a dark place, it can affect me, or it could affect you sitting next to that person. But once you become aware of that, you can change that frequency. You have to work at it though, because if that person is continually giving you things that are bringing you down, and I've just learned this, and it's very, very important, you can excuse yourself from that environment. I think that's also very important. You don't have to necessarily be rude to that person because they're obviously having a very bad day. But my advice is to get up and just move out of that situation with that person, if you can.
Well, what if I ask the question, I have enough abundance that it really doesn't matter how much they take. It doesn't matter at all. They can take as much as they can take because eventually you fill the gut. And all of a sudden, they're overflowing with what they're taking in. Is that a way of changing people or not?
They have to be ready, and they're also going to be aware.
Then why are they taking it if they're not ready?
Well, it's hard to, I mean, a negative person, if you're around a negative person, they're usually negative most of the time. So you're sensing that there's something with them that's going on. Now, yes, walk away, but you may also be able to help that person. They could ask you a question and they could ask you how their day is going and something happened. You can give advice, obviously, to a negative person, and that will change their frequency, but they have to be aware of that.
How do we define negative, Sally?
That's also difficult. For me, negativity brings me down, but I'm here. So defining it can make you feel out of balance. I think that's what they're telling me. You're out of balance. Now, you don't want to go too much. Someone saying, oh, I'm having such a bad day, as an example, I feel terrible. I don't want to say to that person, well, I'm having a wonderful day and everything is going crazy. It's beautiful. I can't believe this. No, that's not good either. You've got to find that balance so that you can have a common ground in which to talk to that person. You're not, for me, I feel that I can't really change anybody. I can change by example, by talking right now, just planting, as we would say, a seed in their head that there may be a different way of trying to live our life. Life is difficult. There's nobody, I'm sure, that goes through this life happy every single day. That doesn't happen, because I believe we're here to learn. So yes, you can change people by example, and they're just telling me to stay at that, because you can.
So
if they're ready.
A positive person is going to always attract a negative soul.
Yes, they are, because we have opposites. Just like Aldo used to tell me, if there was no, you have to have black to understand white. But that goes in life too. Now, the key to learn to do this, and it's not easy, is not dwell on that negativity. Be aware of that negativity and try as you can, the best you can, to turn it into, let's say we're having a bad day, into a good day. It's not easy. But the first step is to be aware of this.
But the negative person is going to expect that you're going to treat them a certain way, because they already know. They've done this with others.
Right.
Who don't quite understand spirit.
Okay.
So, would you tell a person, that's okay, I understand. And then you put your arm around them and say, okay, now let's talk about the other side of what you're feeling. See, I'm trying to get to the point, the world is such a bad place right now, that everybody runs from negative. Everybody. And if you run from negative, then negative wins.
That's very valid. I like that answer, because that's true. But what you said before, if someone is negative and they're willing to maybe change that, you can put your arm, I'm saying walk away from negativity, but there's another side to that. Put your arm around that person and say, well, let's talk it out. Let's see if we can make it a better day. I'm just using that for example. There are many things that bring us down. Obviously, we can't help that. But if you can point that out to show them, and I've had experience with a friend of mine with this, and today she stays away from me if she's feeling she's negative, which is not always a good thing, because I try to call her and she doesn't answer the phone, and she knows who she is because she'll be watching this. However, when she speaks to me, she'll suddenly say, you know, I'm feeling much better. So she'll call me more when she's negative. I'm not walking away from her. I've been friendly with her for years. I can't always help her, but because I'm doing what I'm doing, this is giving her a tremendous amount of hope, because my positivity, and I'm not positive all the time by any means, but because of what I'm doing and how I'm able to do this, it's giving her, let's say, a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way out. It doesn't always work. We have to be ready. I suffered from depression for many years in my childhood days and in the beginning of my marriage. I didn't know there was a way out.
Well, you were in a different timeline.
I was in a, yes, that's a very good example. Yeah, I was in a different timeline. But I knew my reason for being here now is to help people, understand. But I can't save the world, and nor can I even try to save the world.
But you're not supposed to save the world. You're supposed to give the opportunity and the hope that there is another way.
Absolutely. And if I can do that, then I'm doing my job.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about inward, being in your head, overthinking, being angry at yourself all the time, or not being able to find your way out of a room with one door open. These are viewpoints of inner core, inner belief, lack of understanding. It doesn't make you a bad person, or does it?
No, it doesn't make you a bad person, but it's going to make you an unhappy person, because if you continually, I think if you can get that inner confidence in yourself, even if you don't have it all the time, but just be aware of that. And even if you just say to somebody, oh, you look nice today, it's giving that person a little bit more confidence in themselves, because they might have looked in the mirror in the morning and said, oh my God, I look terrible today. But someone coming in and changing that point of view, and that's just how you look, but with anything that does help.
Now, Spirit talks about gaining confidence. Steps of, and I'm going to take the ultra extreme, the person that has the least core confidence in themselves. How does Spirit tell you the steps to take to gain some momentum towards being more positive?
Okay, that's also, it's a good question, but it's a little difficult to answer because we all have we know where we're going. In other words, we work out what we're going to do before we come in here. So if that person, and I'm going to use time again, not even necessarily a timeline, it may not be their time, but if you happen to get someone, and I believe that happens when someone comes into, say, my life, because I try to be positive, it's their timing to change a little bit. So it all falls into place. I was not this way 30 years ago, but my timing now, I've opened up tremendously and I see a lot. Had someone have come to me 30 years ago, I would have listened, but it may not have changed me the way that I've changed now. So we all have timelines and times in which we try to kind of connect. I feel that I'm blessed because I'm getting a lot of help, as we all do, but we don't necessarily open up to it. I was ready to open up.
Well, you have to be ready to understand what it is you're going through.
Totally, the key word is ready, yes. Do we know when we're ready? No. But if we continually, which I did, but I wasn't aware of it, I was pretty stubborn. I had to start painting to realize that there was something more because I'd never been an artist. I had to have my guide here on earth come into me. He never led me, that came into my life when I was ready and I opened up. I could have gone through this whole lifetime without opening up, and he would have missed the opportunity, of which he told me, of talking to me, because he couldn't lead me into it. I had to be open enough to say, well, how did he appear? How did he get into my dreams? I was stubborn, but I opened up.
It's interesting because a lot of people that come into studio look at the paintings, they love the paintings, but I think that the message behind the paintings, and I'm going to ask the question, do we have every day a way of illustrating a little bit more of who we are, what we like, either through paintings, through writings, through humor, through laughter, through anything?
I think we do. And actually, now that I look back on my own life, because I can only talk personally of what happened to me, I was in sales for 22 years. It wasn't easy with what I was doing. However, I brought tremendous humor into this because I was in a business where I was taking people on a presentation. They didn't want to be there. But I was getting humor. I couldn't believe sometimes, where in the world did that come from? I would come up with, and people would laugh like crazy. I was being led, but I didn't understand from where. So when that changed and I started to paint my art, to art, and I'd never had a lesson or ever painted before, now I'm questioning more. There's more. They made people laugh in a job that was very difficult. People didn't want to laugh with me. And then suddenly I'm drawing and I'm painting. And not only am I painting, I'm drawing sketches from previous lives. I couldn't ignore it anymore.
So you're listening to the messages that we've been sent to you since you were born?
Yes, but now that I go back and I'm writing my book, more of when I was as a child and from then onwards, even in my first book, I'm seeing all the things that were happening to me, which I put down at that time as coincidence. There was no way that some of these could have been coincidence because they intervened so much. But I still wasn't ready, Freddie. I'm ready now, and I have been for the last 15 years. But it actually took my guide from another lifetime to come in and physically be with me. I mean, people are not going to understand that. But some of the things that he did were absolutely amazing. He could always find me if my car broke down, things that were completely unexplainable. But now that he's passed, I see even more of what he was able to do for me.
And it's interesting because I wanted to ask you the question, do we always have to understand why things happen?
No, we don't. But I think that, this is a learning curve here. We're here to learn. So if we see that something happened and maybe we haven't been able to overcome it, but I think the lesson is we choose, just so that I continue to make this the way that I see it, we choose our life. So if we want to follow a certain life in our lifetime here, we're going to have things happen, good and bad. So if we can learn, even from good, be grateful for a lot of the things, just know that there's hope in life. We're learning. We're continually learning. This is why we're here, to learn.
And it's funny because even in good, there is something to learn, which explains the good, the bad, and the ugly. But is it fair to say good things happen, bad things happen? You can't determine life on one incident. It's an ongoing book.
Absolutely, it's ongoing, and not only into this lifetime, we carry on into our next lifetime. Again, this is my belief. I don't expect everybody to understand that, but I've had such validation on this. So what we may have even chosen to learn in this lifetime, we may not have been able to accomplish that. So we'll bring it over. And sometimes it can skip a lifetime. We can come in the next lifetime and still not learn that. It could be the lifetime after that. But ultimately, I think we go through lives learning what we need to experience, actually everything. We experience everything.
Now, Sally, when you meet somebody for the first time and they ask you a question, and you talk to spirit, you talk to your guides, correct?
I do, yes.
Do you ever talk to their guides?
Well, they'll come through, because it's just like here. If their guide is there and my guide is there, let's say on the other side of the veil, it's easier to understand that. Then if I'm being asked a question about that particular person, in order to give that answer, my guides may not be of the same collective as their guides, but just like here, you'll bring in the people. They will be able to give me the message for that person, because I'm just an instrument bringing in the message.
So when you give the advice, are you talking to your guides or theirs?
Both. Mainly my guides will interpret and help me with that, because they don't, just like here, they don't know everything. They don't know necessarily someone that I'm going to meet and they'll know about that person, but there is somebody there that is guiding that person that can talk for that person. And that's how I'm able to sometimes give people messages about what's going to happen to them. My guides may not know that. We don't see everything.
Do you ever get a sound, a reading, a hearing, a message that tells you the direct answer will not work, so let me give you the alternative? So sometimes you'll answer a certain way expecting in time, in reference of timeline, all of these factors. And then when it happens, you'll see what they meant, because they don't always give you the why. So again, the question is, do we always need to understand the why? Or do we have to just wait till it unfolds?
I don't think we have to understand it, because we may not be ready. But if we're really ready, I think we're going to interpret it the way that it's going to be interpreted. Again, we're here in a three-dimensional world. We may not even interpret, even though we've got the answer, the way that it's meant to be interpreted. So what will happen is that scenario will happen again, but it'll be a different scenario, but the outcome will be what we chose the outcome to be. It doesn't always happen the first time. That's what I'm hearing too.
Also, I wanted to touch on, people sometimes are fearful of asking you a spiritual question, because sometimes they don't like the answer and they know it. Sometimes they're afraid to talk to a stranger and ask a question. How do you overcome that fear?
Well, again, I'm going to say, let's say we have an audience here. There may be a person in that audience that didn't want to come here, but maybe their friend did. So they may not be ready to, in fact, it's a good thing really not to say, oh, I pick on someone. I would ask them, do you want to ask me a question? Although I may have the answer, because they may not be ready. Their friend brought them there. And they are scared, especially even talking on the air. I understand that.
Is that the friend who didn't want to be there, or the one that came to ask a question?
The one that came to ask the question was ready. The friend that they brought, because they might say, well, I just sit next to me, that person may not be ready. But I don't believe that person, well, I'm going to say would get an answer to a question. Yes, they would, because their guides would still help them, but they may not be ready to ask the question.
But the funny thing is, in my world, the one that didn't want to be there is the one that did want to be there.
Well, again, there's no coincidences. So it might be, it's not black and white. I can't tell you that it's going to be that way or that way.
Well, fear will stop you from thinking positive.
Absolutely, 100%.
And even though you say you don't want to be there, you're there.
Yes, That's very true too. But they may be very fearful of an answer. They may even know that answer, but when someone validates that, then they are fearful. But even if that happens, at least they've got an answer to a question that was important to them. They'll think, well, maybe I should do it that way.
Well, do you get a sense of those that are more afraid than others?
If they're afraid to get the answer?
Any kind of fear.
I can feel it. Yeah, I can feel people's, because I'm an empath, so I can feel their fear. I mean, if I'm picking, say, on an audience with people, I don't think if I'm feeling someone's fearful, unless I have a specific answer to something, their loved one or something is here, I'm not going to perhaps call on that person. But I can't say that because it can happen.
That's an interesting aspect.
Yeah.
You and I share the same why. I would pick the person.
Yes. Well,
and ask them a question instead of them asking me a question. And I think that asking them a question, see, a lot of people look at you as something more than what you are. They'd say, she talks among the stars. I think you even said that to me yesterday.
Yes.
And the funny thing is that we all walk among the stars, but there are those that look up and there are those that look straight ahead.
Because it's timing. My timing was here to open up totally in this particular lifetime. And carrying on with that subject, in a few lifetimes back, about 4 or 5 lifetimes, everything I'm doing now, I knew. But what happened, I came in because I'd had enough of it, just like a lot of people have. So it was very dormant within me. However, now I'm opening up again. But I could be talking to someone and it's completely dormant to them, and they don't want to know. They're not ready.
But then they show up in front of you. So
I know that.
Right. They don't know that.
They don't know it.
That's
Exactly,
right. So
Freddie.
It's nice to see that you analyze that they actually don't know it yet. And then all of a sudden they come to see you and things change. They do.
That's very important. And absolutely, because again, I'm going to talk about the free will, but why would they be, say I'm on a show and I have an audience, other than someone, even with someone bringing them there, they're still meant to be there. They just don't know it. I believe that.
But think about it this way, Sally. There are people that they come here and they've been to 20 other people. And they're not getting the answer they want because the delivery of the question is incorrect. They're giving them a specific answer. Are you going to get married? Yes, his name is. And then when it doesn't happen, they blame the one giving you the message when the message was sent incorrectly.
Well, yes, that's also a very valid point, because I have been pretty accurate with first and last names, but it's still up to that person. Because although the first and last name of someone I'm giving them, that maybe they're going to, well, not necessarily they're going to meet, but they have someone in their life or someone's departed and giving the message. When I give that answer, again, and I have to stress, we have free will, Freddie.
That's right.
We don't have to follow even what I'm saying, although let's say it's in their future. It doesn't always happen that way.
But all of a sudden you awaken them. And I know people that you've spoken to now, and they walk around saying things that people around me, they scratch their heads because they just don't understand. Their delivery is so raw because they're new at the teachings that you've given them. The opportunities that you've given them, explaining that free will does exist in many different forms.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And sometimes those that are the weakest are the ones that you have to help. So I got to ask, are you here to teach? Are you here to coach? Or are you here to learn?
A little bit of both, all the above, let's say. Yes, I'm here to coach, which I am doing right now. I'm here to teach by what's happened to me. I mean, I'm not special. I've just opened up to this. So I'm here to give by example. What's happened to me can happen to you too. You have to be ready. You have to have that open mind. The open mind is very important. Even if you don't completely believe it, just look certain, not go around all the time, because that's not going to work either. But when things happened in your life, just go back maybe into things and say, how in the world did that happen? That's what I started to do, especially now even when I'm writing a new book. Because it's more than coincidence. We all have things. It may never be our time in this lifetime. Okay, so maybe in the next one or the one after. We have many opportunities to begin to open up.
But the opening up, does it get better? Does it stay the same? Does it? Who's the one that says the needle is moving?
We are. We are. Because we choose that. If I suddenly, and this is not going to happen to me because I don't want it to happen, I don't want to do this anymore, things are still going to happen to me that have been happening all my life. I may not want to see it anymore. I say, I had enough. This isn't true. I don't feel that way, and I can never see myself feeling that way. But this is what happens. It doesn't stop. It's whether we see it or not. That's very important. Whether we see it, it's there.
So you're giving people an opportunity to come and talk to you, to come and share. It doesn't even have to be a question. It could be a thought.
Right.
And to understand that the way they think is okay.
Absolutely. I'm not here to change anybody, Freddie, and I don't want anybody listening to think that. I'm not here to change you. I can only tell you what's happened to me. I opened up and a lot of things happened. It may not be that person's time. That's all right. You know what is good? The fact that they hurt me. They don't ever have to do this. But there will be a little thing, not always, in their mind saying, I remember Sally said something like that. Oh my gosh, it could be 2 years from now. But it might spark them to begin to open up. It may not. I'm not here to change anyone. I can't.
Correct. But you're going to give people the opportunity that if they want it,
Yeah.
it's available to get it. Tell us a little bit about your Facebook page. How people can leave
Okay.
questions.
You can contact me on Facebook. Go into my website, Sally Barnard, artbysallybarnard.com. You can send me a message there. You can go onto my page, which is Call Me Zena. That's one that you can see all our shows, and also on YouTube. I believe I'm on YouTube now. Or go into my Facebook, which is more of a personal, but it's Sally Barnard, and follow me. I can't accept any invitations right now because they only allow 5,000 on there, but you can follow me on that. And Sally's Art. So I'm pretty exposed on Facebook and LinkedIn actually too.
You can't get more friends, but you can get as many followers as you want.
Right, that I just learned. I'm not very technical, as you know, but you just follow me and you'll hear. But Call Me Zena is probably the best right now. It's a new page, but I'm getting a lot of people on there now because you can listen to these shows on there, and also YouTube. I am on YouTube.
And when you're on the air, which is when?
I'm on Mondays at 3 p.m. here at the Brooklyn Cafe.
We're going to set up a microphone. We'll keep you off camera unless you want to be on camera. We'll keep you off camera. If you want to ask a question, then we'll keep you with no phone, no name or anything else if people just don't want people to know that they're asking.
Right.
And we're setting up the phone lines as well so you can talk to them that way, which is really important. And we want people to ask questions.
And if they're local, which I think we said before, please come into the studio. You can meet me in person Monday at 3 o'clock. Or even if you set something else up, if you say we've got a few people, I'd be happy to come down here. I live very near here.
It's funny because when I have people like you were here yesterday, it looks like everybody always has a question.
Yes, because it's not coincidental. I'm here and I'm here to answer their questions. Even if you think, well, I'm going, but I have nothing to ask you can say that person because you may not know me, Sally. However, I truly believe that some question will come about.
That's right. And it's funny because yesterday at night, I was hoping that you had stayed.
Yeah.
Because we had lots of people that would have asked you, but they're going to come back.
But yes, exactly. And I will be back. Just give me a call. I happen to be out with some friends of mine and it was pouring with rain. And I don't particularly like driving in the dark. But I'm overcoming that, so it was fine.
But sometimes there are messages that we have to listen to. But then again, there are also people that are finding out more and more about the show and about what you are doing creatively and what you are talking about. And more, you ever wake up without having a question as to what you're going to do today, or do you always wake up knowing you're going to do something special today?
I always believe that I'm going to do something special. Do I know what it is? Absolutely not.
So you don't need to always know the why.
You don't have to know at all. But if you've got that open mind and you're in a positive frame of mind, it will happen. It's happening. I mean, again, I'm going to bring up yesterday is a very good example. I've got a lot on my mind. I'm going away. I'm happy I'm getting married, but it's still got to work things out. And I'm doing my show. But the moment, absolutely, the moment that I step into this studio, everything changes. I feel great. And if I can pass that on, I feel like this is my home, Freddie. You've given me and I've given myself the opportunity to do this. I recommend, if you're local, please come into the studio here. It's easy to find.
It's easy to find. We're right down here. We'll set up a microphone so you can talk to Sally, or you can talk to her privately in a private environment as well.
Perfect, yes. And I think over time, we're already building up on that. We will, and maybe later on, right now it's 3:00, but we were discussing maybe we're doing an evening show. Yes.
Well, there's a couple of other angles that I'm going to throw at you.
Okay, great.
To see how you feel about that. But everybody who has an opportunity to talk to Sally should come down and talk to Sally. And, I've been doing this business 15 years. I've done spiritual shows for many, many, many years. And this one is different because this one is coming from a non-rehearsed environment. And by non-rehearsed, it means you have a gift that you've grown over time, and you're beginning to learn not only about your gift of other people, but about yourself.
Absolutely.
And you share that. You share what you learn with other people. And then I get amazed. Because you're the only person I know in this business that says it. Says, you know something? I just learned something. And that's really vital because it means that you're just like me and we learn things together. That's why we share the white.
Exactly. And just found that out yesterday, right? Yes.
Which is amazing. And then you're going to revamp a book. Actually, it's a new book. You're taking pieces from an old book, but you're going to revamp an older version to a newer version, which is going to turn into a new book.
Yes.
Do you have any other desires in this field? Because this field is vast.
Yes, I want to get my word out there. And if that means, and I'm in the process of someone writing a movie of my story, and it's still got to be presented to producers, but he's working on that. And again, I can't tell you that I have no ego, but it's not for ego. It's to get my message out. And my saying has been, since I started this, anything is possible. Just keep an open mind and truly believe it. Does it happen when you wish for something right away? It can. It could happen a month from now. One other thing about that, be specific when you say something. Say, I want something, but give a time on it. Because on the other
specific.
Something specific, like you, well, I'm going to say meet somebody, but whatever you want.
You're going to meet a lot of people then.
Yeah, but if more specific, exactly. I'm not, well, because I've met somebody, so that's okay. But if they want something, describe it as if you're talking to someone else. This is what I want. I would like to meet that person a week, a month, or a year, whatever it is. Be specific with timing, because they don't know the timing. It could show up 10 years later, and that might not be the timing for you, but you asked for it. So when you ask something, ask as if you're talking to a friend, and I want this today, tomorrow. And truthfully, I can't guarantee it. It works.
I want happiness has a lot of legs to it.
Okay. Yes, you've got to be specific. I want happiness, so in order to get happiness, I need this to happen. Well, when you say that, you don't want it to happen 10 years from now, otherwise you're not going to be happy for 10 years.
But Sally, don't you have to create that I want?
Yes, you do, but you are creating by asking that question. Once you're setting it in movement, Freddie, because once you ask for something, automatically your mind will go into more details on that. Details are important because they're listening to you. We all have guides listening, but they're not you. Again, we have free will. So you're talking to someone for it to happen, but let them know when you want it to happen. That's very, very important.
We have 1 minute left, Sally. I want you to leave us with a tip of the day.
The tip of the day is actually ask exactly what we're talking about. That's very important. Whatever you want, ask for it. The worst thing that can happen, it doesn't happen. But it will happen. You've got to believe it. You've got to truly, as you ask, believe that that will happen. That's my tip of the day. It's very important. Your life will change. Bye-bye, everybody. See you next week. Coincidence or not, it's time to trust your intuition and knowings. Thank you for joining me through this journey of self-discovery and awakening with the help of my spirit guides. I'm Sally Barnard, and you can find my book, artwork, and contact through artbysallybarnard.com. Join us next week. This has been Call Me Zena.